Let's go to the first story because we were going to talk about like climate change stuff too, which we will get into this. But the lead story is the UK is pissed off because China's been engaged in this disinformation campaign since the start of this. They've been lying to us. It's been getting worse. And I had to wonder, like, at what point do we consider that an act of war?
Yeah, good point.
So BuzzFeed reported that Chinese trolls are going online and they're sowing disinformation, which results in a slower response, and it actually results in people dying. Civilians. This is not like a military thing. So at what point do we say they're actually killing our people and we do something about it? I honestly don't know. But in this whole like controversy involving the UK government, this circumstance, they're actually saying they think China's numbers are 15 to 40 times worse. So that China might actually have like 45,000 dead.
Why would people choose to like believe this kind of stuff? But then when
convenience.
Yeah, it's like they're obviously not giving us the truth with their numbers. But then they're like, oh, well, but they say it's the U.S. now, so let's jump on that and run with that story. It's
political expedience. So you get some journalist who's trying to craft a narrative. They know what the story is before they even looked anything up. They don't look up all these information and then think to themselves like, whoa, here's what's happening. They say, how do I do a story about, Boris Johnson of the UK being bad? Ooh, I know. Here's a story from China. And they say, but China says this. Like as if we take anything they say seriously.
Right, exactly.
So I see this story and I started wondering about like what the limit would be to where we actually say, hey man, like you're getting people killed. And this is a story from Defense One from March 10th, where you have major adversaries of the United States, their media is pushing bioweapon conspiracy theories. I believe what they say in this article is that Iran is the main culprit in doing this. So you have Chinese officials going on Twitter claiming the U.S. military spread this in China.
Oh, officials are saying
officials.
I thought you were saying verified, just regular citizens.
Verified Twitter user.
Oh, wow.
And Twitter does nothing.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, man. So listen, this is going to damage our reputation around the world.
Yeah.
It's going to impede our ability to get supplies. At what point?
I don't know. I feel like every story I'm reading is all these different countries are like pissed at China for sending them bunk like face masks and
but it's
COVID
Europe.
tests.
It's Europe. It's not, Iran. Dude, did I tell you about what China was doing back in January?
I don't know.
Siphoning away medical resources from Australia, Canada, and other countries?
No, I didn't hear that.
So this was Sydney Morning Herald and news.com.au in Australia.
Okay.
A whistleblower came out and said that around the time that China was telling all of the world there was no problem, no human-to-human transmission, they were advising their employees in foreign countries to start buying up as much medical supplies as possible, like hazmat suits, masks, PPE gear, and shipping them off to China as much as they could. And they did. And Canada and Australia were two countries that gave away a ton of their medical gear, and now we're all panicked. We can't get it. And then when masks were being made in China by American companies, China turned it around and took it back. So China knew, and we have a timeline that going back to like December, China had evidence there was human-to-human transmission, and this was getting really bad.
But then January 5th or something, the WHO was like
15th.
Oh, 15th.
They were like, China says
like a month later, basically.
China says there's no human-to-human transmission in preliminary tests. And then they have, did you see that guy from WHO?
Yeah.
When asked
Shut
about
the camera
Taiwan,
off.
Turns his Skype off.
Yes.
Dude.
What is up with that? It's like, it makes me feel like the WHO is just a Chinese entity. Like,
Japan.
Are you supposed to believe them?
Japan apparently called them the Chinese Health Organization. Like, just straight up called them out.
Really?
The dude. So for those that aren't familiar, right? There was a woman from Hong Kong interviewing a guy from the World Health Organization, and she said, "I wanted to ask you about Taiwan's response," and the guy just says nothing. He stares blankly, and she's like, "Hello," and he goes, "Oh, I didn't hear you." And she goes,
"But let's move on to a different question."
No. She goes, "Let me ask you again." "No, that's okay. We'll take another question." She's like, "Well, no, I want to ask you about Taiwan," and then boop, turns off Skype.
Yep.
They call him back, and then when she asks him again, he calls it China. "Oh, we've talked about China already. All over China, they've had a great response." No, they haven't. They're lying about their numbers. They're cranking out. The crematoriums are running at full capacity, according to numerous stories.
Yeah.
And and I think China screwed up. China lied. They exploited it. They're exploiting it now. Their disinformation is getting people killed in our countries. And every step of the way, they're doing this really annoying tactic of like, whatever we say, they say it right back. So when we started seeing people question whether or not this originated in a Chinese lab.
Yeah.
So there was a study out of, and this is China's fault. It's not anything to do with us. There was a study out of South China University saying that some guy was doing researching bat coronavirus,
Right.
and then he had gotten bitten, or that he had been peed on or something, and so he self-quarantined, and that may have been the cause, because this was like literally across the street from the food market.
I don't know what article I was reading, but I did read one. I can't verify it because I don't have it with me, but it's saying that it's not man-made. This is a biological from an animal,
right,
that happened to be,
Yep.
transferred to a human and then exploded from there.
And we've known about the possibility of this for a long time.
Yeah.
It's happened before in smaller numbers and weaker viruses. Sometimes you win the lottery, man. It happens. Now, I do think it's hilarious, and I don't mean hilarious isn't like, haha, we're having a good time. I mean like eerily strange, kind of funny, that it's like we had a meme going around of like 2020, we're going to have a pandemic, hoo-hoo, and everyone's laughing, and they're like, ah, ha, ha.
Yeah.
And then it happened.
Yeah, then it actually happened.
Yeah. Well, we should actually read this bioweapon thing.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this, actually.
Yeah, basically the reason I bring this up is like they're throwing extreme conspiracies back in our face. And what worries me is if we have this disinformation that's getting people killed, this right here is them accusing us of an act of war.
Yeah.
So at what point...
I heard rumors for 2 months now that, oh, did they do this on purpose? Is this a biological attack? Like, it's not like this is a rumor that is just popping up. It's almost like they heard. I mean, I don't see any senator or like Trump didn't say like, I think it's a biological attack. It's like it's random people who are just conspiracy theorists saying it.
Well, for them, it's like their media, right?
Yeah.
So let's read this, get some context. Defense One says Chinese authorities maintain that COVID-19 likely originated at a market in Wuhan where people were selling bat meat. But Iranian, Russian, and Chinese propaganda media outlets would like you to believe without evidence, I love that, without evidence, that the emerging public health crisis comes from U.S. biological weapons. Disinformation about the coronavirus is spreading as quickly as the outbreak, fueled by Iranian, Russian, and Chinese government-backed campaigns, blaming and attacking the United States as the source of the scourge. One narrative all three countries, including China, highlight is the notion that the U.S. is weaponizing the crisis for political gain and thus worsening its spread globally. Rachel Chernaski, a project manager for the Foreign Influence Election 2020 project with the Foreign Policy Research Institute, wrote yesterday. You know what's funny?
It's true.
Literally what I've been saying.
That part's true.
No, I totally disagree.
Well, you mean the Democrats weren't like using this to try to sneak more stuff into the bill that they just
but
passed?
not globally.
Okay, not globally. Yeah. Okay.
Well, so I guess the way I see it when they say the U.S. is weaponizing it for political gain,
it sounds thus like worsening it spread globally. I feel as a separate statement to the first part is weaponizing the crisis for political gain. Period.
I definitely think that there is an activist media contingent with a political overlap.
Okay.
That are trying to exploit this to hurt Trump and make political gains.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Joe Biden saying it was xenophobic to close the borders. And it's like, every country on the planet did this, dude. What are you talking about? Yeah. But what I see from this is basically what I've said about China. We know they're lying. We know they're engaging in disinformation campaigns. It's getting people killed, and they're doing it for political gain. They're sending bunk equipment to, Italy and Spain, the Netherlands.
I mean, China's claiming that those weren't like, I want to say FDA approved, but I don't know what their approval thing is, but it's a company that isn't approved by like the government. So supposedly the government's issued stuff is okay.
Do you know how piracy worked back in the day, back in the colonial era?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Let's say, you're France. Okay. You got a bunch of boats full of spices, delicious spices.
Sure.
When all of a sudden another ship comes up, privateer, with, black sails or whatever they did, and they start firing on you. And you fight, but you win. And so you board the privateer, and it turns out all the dudes, English. And you're like, these English MFers, man.
Yeah.
So when you go to England, they go, oh, it's a privateer. Oh, they're criminals. We have nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
And then the next day they go to another privateer and say, here's your mission. Go disrupt the French supply lines. And if you get caught, we disavow.
Yeah.
So what we see with China and other countries today is something very similar, where you'll see private criminals and private companies. And China will be like, when we catch these people, we'll bring them to justice. We are so sorry they sold you faulty equipment.
Right.
And then they go back home and say, good job.
Yeah. Okay.
Because that's the point. So
you think that's what's going on?
I mean, maybe. It could be that people are exploiting the crisis and they're selling garbage for a quick buck. You know what I mean? Like, if you could mass produce trash and sell it for $10 per trash, these people do it. And it doesn't seem like China cares because they're exploiting foreign interests, not national interests.
Do you think that's what's happening here? Do you think that this is them going, all right, go spread this information?
Yeah, totally.
But if you get caught, we're just going to be like, you're regular
Well, no,
citizens.
this is coming from like their official
Oh,
media
no, you
outlets,
said
man.
that
Right.
it's official. That's crazy.
Well, that's
so
what they're
in
saying.
the Iranian government also and the Russian government?
Well, the
it's
government...
all official people?
So look, the governments are playing it up like, no, we're not claiming it. Like they mentioned, China is saying it was from the bat. But then Chinese media goes, but what if? Oh.
So the media, newsflash, the media everywhere pretty much lies most of the time.
Yeah, but their media is an arm of the communist regime. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Dude, in the U.S.,
So it's much worse.
I'd be willing to bet, based on the title of this video, me like criticizing these foreign countries, they're going to claim I was pushing the conspiracy. Because that's what our media does.
True.
Like, they carry water for China, man. They love it. They love the communist teat, all the sweet milk that comes along with it. Dude, so Marco Rubio, you know who Marco Rubio is?
Yeah.
He tweeted something like, journalists are gleefully, celebrating or enjoying the damage or whatever, something like that. I don't want to misquote him, but it was a bunch of journalists were like, how dare you? No one takes pleasure in any of this. So then he posted a bunch of tweets where it was like a bunch of stories.
Pretty much them taking glee in it.
Yeah, right? And like making snarky political jokes about it and stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know what, man? The media in this country is free, and they do this. And I think, the bigger question I have about all of this is, at what point are we going to see a crackdown on the First Amendment? Because guess what? We're already seeing a crackdown on we're already seeing a crackdown on most of the First Amendment. Freedom of religion and the right to peaceably assemble, both completely infringed upon right now. Gone.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
can't gather in groups of more than 2 in some places. How does that make sense? And they're saying you can't go to places of worship, and they're actually, they're calling out people who are engaging in worship, and it's like the government can't stop you. The argument is, well, quarantine. Is that a good enough argument? It's tough, right?
Yeah, it's a tough question, I don't know how to answer it really, because, I believe everyone, like, we're both libertarians. Like, I want everyone to do what they want to do, but then at the same time, I don't want stupid people going out and gathering and spreading it around, like that story we read, or that we're going to later on.
It's a great conundrum, man.
Yeah, it's
right. So this whole thing's interesting, and I think we should actually touch a little bit upon like the possibility of war before we get into like because it's the war. If we enter any kind of war, then you'll see your civil liberties gone, right?
Yeah.
So,
do you think this is why they started talking about the draft last week?
But they talk about the draft all the time.
But now, maybe, in the middle of a pandemic, why is that on the docket?
And mentioning the women can do other jobs.
Yeah, why are they
time
talking
to get
about
involved
that right now?
Yeah. Yep.
It's kind of a interesting time.
I mean, this has been this international conflict has been brewing for a long time.
True.
And me and many other journalists who cover conflict have been kind of, I don't want to say waiting for it, but speculating as to when we would actually see full-scale warfare. Apparently, we had World War III with Iraq and Iran already. So this would be, in fact, World War IV.
How would that... Is the entire world included in that battle?
It's a joke.
Okay, so...
like Iran fired Iraq, and then, everyone's like...
Sorry, no. Whoever calls it World War III, you're wrong.
But there's...
I've spoken.
So, there's been a lot of speculation about Syria, the Qatar-Turkey pipeline, Gazprom, natural gas in Europe, the conflict we have, and the proxy wars. They've all been going on for decades. It's all part of the same conflict. It's never ended.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, a spark hits. We were sitting on a powder keg, and then the coronavirus happened.
Yeah.
Now, maybe it's a bioweapon. I don't think so. I think it's just these things happen.
But is it going to be a spark that lights the fuse, or is it going to be like an acid that just melts away the barrel so nothing happens? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I feel like it could go either way.
I don't know, man. So China's claiming they have 2,500 dead, and they're like, no new cases, and we're like on the downturn, and people are uncritically showing their numbers. There was a really funny thing I saw on Twitter where this guy has a graph where he's like, I took all of the data on coronavirus, and you can track different countries. And then there was a frequently asked question, why isn't China on this graph? And he said, because their numbers are fake.
Yeah. Okay.
So we've seen locals saying
surprising.
the crematoriums have been running full speed nonstop
In China.
And people have been that was originally a conspiracy theory. The original conspiracy theory was that people could see satellite images of crematoriums going nuts.
Right.
And then all the fact-checking agencies were like, no, it's not true.
It's medical supplies.
Now a bunch of mainstream outlets are like, we have some serious questions about the number of urns being delivered.
Yeah.
Because apparently like 5,000 got delivered in like one period or something. I don't know how long a certain period is, but they said over the next 12 days, we're going to be delivering more urns. And people are like, so that's what, like 45 to 50,000 urns?
Yeah, why?
Right.
2,000 deaths? 2,500 deaths?
Yeah, they're just empty. Everybody gets an empty urn.
Just in case.
Just in case.
We're just, restocking up. That's
or,
all.
like those videos we saw,
Nah.
people are collapsing in the street and it's really, really bad. So here's the bigger question. You say, could it be like an acid just dissolving the powder keg and it just fizzles away? I don't know, man. If the amount of deaths are seriously that crazy in China, we now have 17,000 combined in Spain and Italy. It's like 11,000 in Italy. If the numbers really are that high in this short of a time span, then at what point do they become desperate? People are starting. Countries are now hoarding food.
Yeah.
So we're one of the first things that needs to happen is hard dividing lines, so people know who's fighting who.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We've talked a lot about like the possibility of a civil war in the U.S., and one of the things that makes it less likely is that there's not going to be a clear delineation between factions, and so it's really difficult to fight if you go outside and you're like, here's a guy, okay, he's wearing a Muse shirt. Are you on my side?
Yeah.
I have no idea. Versus if people are like wearing clear, patches or in a certain area, and you walk into the area and say, hey, you, what are you doing? You're on this territory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll suit it up.
So I guess my question is like for this opening segment is like, at what point do we say this is war? Is it going to be like a shot heard around the world moment? Because look, man.
Well, what would that be? Like, I can't picture any sort of warfare where anyone gets out of this, on top. Of
course.
Like China claims if their numbers are wrong, which everyone's assuming they're wrong.
Lies.
Yeah, they're not in very good shape. We're not in very good shape. No one's in very good shape. And if we go to war, that means, we would want to supply them with food and whatever to keep, but the supply lines are already kind of, they're getting interrupted.
So in some areas, I'm already hearing that people can't get supplies anymore.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's interesting because when you're on Twitter, you're like in one place where you can see everyone talking. Yeah. But then you got to realize people are all over the world. So I saw one person tweeting about how there's no, there's like certain supplies are completely drained in my area and we can't get them anywhere. We can't even order them.
Yeah.
And so like we went to the store the other day to just get food stuff, and we're like,
seemed fine.
Oh, they had tons.
Seemed normal.
They had a full pallet of 25-pound bags of flour.
Yeah. I didn't know eggs was the one thing that was gone, right?
No, they had eggs, but it was less.
They had eggs at Sam's, not at Walmart.
Sam's, right?
Oh,
yeah.
right.
Walmart.
Right. At Walmart, it was
Walmart was missing a ton of stuff.
Right.
And that makes sense though, because Sam's is like
not that much though.
Right. Yeah.
As I expected to see.
Yeah, they had milk and everything.
Just eggs were gone. That was it.
Yeah.
So which are perishable. Which, well, I guess you could keep them. There is ways.
There were some things, but for the most part, it was like it seemed like there was a little bit less of most things, but most things were there.
Yeah.
But in some areas, they are getting hit. So anyway, I guess. I don't know, man. I think if China gets strained and the factories are shut down and they can't produce food, if we can overproduce food, then I don't think we have anything really to worry about. I don't think anyone's gonna want to fight.
Yeah.
They're gonna try and secure their own circumstances, their own situations. But if somebody died in the U.S. because of disinformation, and they did, what do we say to their family? Like so we have what I think around 2,000. Just over 2,000 people have died so far in the U.S. Now, some people want to blame Trump. I don't think that's fair. I think to a certain point, you can criticize the president. You can criticize Bill de Blasio a lot more because New York City is the hardest hit place, and Cuomo gets some of that criticism. But come on, the fault is really on China for lying to us.
Yeah.
If they came out right away and said, look, preliminary data shows human-to-human transmission, it could be a false alarm, but seriously, get ready for this.
Everybody locked down.
Yep.
Let's do this.
Yep.
But yeah, they're trying to
they're
save
exploiting
face.
it. Yeah. No, they're exploiting it.
How
so? For one, they immediately started having their employees in other countries siphon away emergency medical gear and send it to China. And so they did it in a legal way. They did it through the free market, which leads to a serious, conundrum I see on the internet where they're like, all they did was buy up as much as they could through free market practice.
Yeah.
And my response is by lying to us, lying to the World Health Organization so that no one understood how bad it was. And then a lot of people were like, oh, that's really cool that we're helping China with their medical gear because, they're facing a shortage. And now that we've got 120,000 or so people in the US, we're like, we need medical gear. And that's why that to me is why it's so annoying when people are like, Trump has fumbled this across the board. And it's like, look, man.
Well, people feel better when they have someone to blame.
Blame China. Come on.
Good point.
Yeah, but the media is too busy carrying water for them, saying it's racist if you blame China.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Communist Party of China is not a race. It is an authoritarian organization of some sort.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So anyway, here's the main point. We can move on to another subject, but I'm just to the people whose families have lost their lives, who have lost loved ones. If they want answers, are they going to ignore this? Or do we need to tell them, like, China lied and the people you cared about died? And is there anything that's going to come from it? And if we do want something to come from it, what if China says, F you? Do we just say, okay, that's cool, we're not going to do anything, you're good? Or does somebody say, nah? And then, I think really in order for war to break out, you need some kind of hard desperation or ideological zealotry.
Right.
China would have to be like, we are seizing the South China Sea, period. Full-on military blockade.
We will shoot down any plane, any ship that comes into that space.
And then if the U.S. says we're going to, fly in international waters, and then, because China already lasered a plane last month or whatever. So we've been dangerously close. I don't want to act like I think it's guaranteed, but I've had people, who cover this stuff and who have, worked in military stuff being like, dude, it's getting worse than it's ever been. Especially with pandemic, with a loss of food stores, hoarding, and then you have these media companies, or I shouldn't say companies, but state-run propaganda, trying to convince their populations we did this to them.
Yeah, there's this article I read about like the escalation of the blame game between China and America, basically, because once Trump went on and said the Chinese virus, it was kind of like pointing a big finger at China and saying you're to blame. And it's not necessarily the Chinese citizens, it is the CCP who was like, we're not saying anything to anybody, and
that's why CCP virus is better.
Right, exactly.
Or Jinping plague.
That makes a lot more sense. But then now they're doing this because how are you going to go further up from it's not our fault and like it's not the Chinese virus? Well, you're the one who put it there then. Let's push that campaign.
A bioweapon claim is so much like more egregious.
Absolutely, I agree.
It's look, if we've got a bunch of random people on the internet claiming that it was a Chinese bioweapon, like, come on. Of course, it's like people are going to go on the internet and say whatever they want.
Yeah.
If state-run media organizations or state-sanctioned or controlled media organizations are telling their citizens the United States engineered a bioweapon to go after them, they're going to be like, they're going to be rallied, right?
Yeah.
They're so this is what people, you know what a false flag is?
Mm-hmm.
So this is what people basically, it's kind of like a false flag. Convince your people that you're under attack. A false flag would be they attack themselves and then blame it on someone else flying a false flag, right?
Right.
But it's similar in that they need to get all of their people on board with full-on conflict with us. Not that some of these countries actually need that, but Russia kind of does. Because the Russian people and the American people, for the most part, they absolutely do not hate each other.
You know what? This almost feels like, remember we were talking about those videos that were emerging? We weren't able to show them to you guys because we can't really confirm them, but we were seeing videos out of China of almost like civil war, like people were fighting and like being locked away and like joining their own police force and fighting other police force.
Well, that video is public. Everyone's seen it. That's reported. Okay. Yeah, Wuhan, they're flipping a police vehicle.
I mean, this almost seems like they're trying to convince their own citizens, and it has almost nothing to do with us. I mean, obviously it does because we're the main target here, but it's like if people are actually rising up against the CCP in China, we won't know. We're not going to know anything about that. But if that's actually happened... Yeah. Which it looks like that could be happening. We won't ever know about it until years from now. It'll be, finally the CCP will get overthrown and people will be like, oh yeah, remember back when the coronavirus hit? Yeah, we started at that point and we had a civil war.
And
so look at this.
How does China stop that from happening?
It was America.
Yep.
Let's don't worry, it wasn't us. It was America. They did it. And it's like,
and we're here to protect you.
Right, exactly.
You must trust us.
Yeah,
the Americans are doing
that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, man.
It's like they're really, because it's stupid. Like I think it was a Chinese doctor that confirmed that that not that blew the whistle, but confirmed that it was an animal, like natural in nature.
Of course.
And then like we confirmed it, and like a bunch of doctors around the globe were like, yeah, it's a natural thing. Right. It's not like it was a bioweapon, which now they're pushing, so it's kind of convenient in the time where I saw those last week where people were fighting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And we can kind of wrap up on this point, because I think you kind of nailed it. But
yeah,
when the people of China flip over a police, vehicle, these are people who get arrested and tortured for saying naughty words.
Yeah, for saying, I think you're stupid, policeman.
Yep.
And then they get beaten until they say sorry, right?
Say sorry 20 times. And they're sitting there like clearly all messed up.
I mean, dude took the riot shield and was beating the other cop with it.
Yeah, man.
So
they need to get a handle on things. It's no surprise they do this stuff. Well, the UK is furious about it. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. If you want to catch the full show, tune in to this channel, subscribe, hit the like button, or check us out on iTunes and Spotify, and we will soon have this podcast up for free on all podcast platforms. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all in the next episode.